Hello, my name is Frank Szymanek. I'm a senior consultant with Plan Pilot. Thank you for spending a few minutes with me as I review some best practices around managing fiduciary risk. So why is managing fiduciary risk important? Well, we begin with the increased standard of care under ERISA that's been in place for many years. More recently, we have the DOL rule that's now defunct, but we have the potential for replacements from the DOL, the SEC, and state regulators. Couple that with the proliferation of litigation, and you can see that the fiduciary risks are only getting greater. In order to manage those risks, the Department of Labor advises that we have a good process in place. This process should focus on having a well-defined and operating committee, and then good processes around how we oversee the investments, the service providers, and evaluate fees. So there are a number of best practices around your committee. First, we begin by defining the committee and focus on a couple of issues, the size and the diversity of the committee. In terms of size, we want a committee that's large enough to have different points of view represented, but not so large that the committee can't make a decision around the consensus. Most effective committees have about 5 to 7 members. We'd like to see diversity in the committee. Usually they're made up of human resources people and some finance people. But it's very effective to have representation from the participants themselves. In a higher education institution, for example, this would mean having faculty and staff members to represent the views of those who are making use of the plan. Now that we've got our committee in place, the next thing we want to do is train them to make sure they fully understand the fiduciary role and responsibilities. We would do this at the beginning or as any new member joins the committee. On an ongoing basis, we would do updates on legal and regulatory developments to make sure that all committee members stay current on what the issues are. Now that we have our committee in place and they're trained, there are different pieces of documentation that govern the committee. The first is going to be a committee charter. This charter will spell out who the committee members are, how they function, how they vote, etc. Next, because they are fiduciaries, we would do a fiduciary handbook that documents what those roles and responsibilities are. And we would ask each fiduciary to sign off on that, acknowledging that they've read it and understood. Next, we want our committee to operate effectively. This begins by having an agenda for every meeting that specifically lays out what the agenda topics are going to be. The agenda, as well as any meeting materials, should be distributed in advance to all participants so that they can be prepared. A good committee chairperson is very active in making sure that all participants are participating in the committee discussion, that all points of view are being heard, and that good decision-making is occurring through consensus. At the end of the meeting, thorough minutes should be taken to document all decisions that were made, the next steps, and who and when those are going to occur. So again, a good committee is well-defined, properly trained, has the right documentation in place, and operates in a very effective manner. With our committee in place, we then need to focus on some of the key issues that are getting fiduciary scrutiny today. The first of these is around investment oversight. Investment oversight begins by having a good investment policy statement in place that spells out the goals and the objectives of the program, as well as the risk and return measures that are going to be followed. Good investment monitoring goes beyond simply looking at returns. It looks at risk measures and risk-adjusted performance, and it looks at those over longer periods of time to capture what's most predictive of good performance going forward. The next issue is around the oversight of the service providers. In a retirement plan, this usually means the record keeper. On a regular basis, usually annually, benchmarking should be done of the services that are being provided versus those that are available to make sure that we're staying current with the services that we can take advantage of. On a periodic basis, say every 5 years, a more formal process should occur in which we solicit proposals from other providers. This will give us a chance to see what are best practices in the industry and to take most advantage of those for our plan. The other area that's getting big consideration, of course, is around fees. Naturally, we want fees to be as low as possible, but we have to balance that with the need to cover the plan expenses. We also want the fees to be reasonably level across all participants, regardless of the investment choices that they're making. The plan sponsor should also consider what will be done with any excess revenue that's generated, whether that's used to pay plan expenses or is rebated to the participants. All of these decisions should be documented in a fee policy statement to be memorialized going forward. As you can see, the role of a fiduciary is expanding, complex, and uncertain. Having a good process in place that defines and operates your committee and provides good oversight of the investments, the service provider, and the fees will take you a long way in terms of managing your fiduciary risks. Please let us know if Plan Pilot can assist you in any ways with managing these fiduciary liabilities. Thank you for joining.